Welcome to the Hoops&Huddle podcast. I am Malik Walker, and today we are speaking with Subria Whitaker of Grow the Game. I love her and her knowledge of the game. You can find her all over social media at Subria Whitaker. She knows the game. She loves the game. She, supports women's hoops through and through all year round. So welcome, Subria, to Hoops&Huddle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for that lovely intro.
Yes. We're going to talk about Grow the Game, your nonprofit, during our time today. But I wanted to first get started and talk about how you feel about the W season so far. Like, is it rolling the way you expected? I call it the first quarter because the season's 32 games, and we're already like 8-9 games in. So how do you feel about the first quarter so far? What is sticking out to you?
So the good news is that we got more games this season, but I did read somewhere on Twitter that some teams are basically through 25% of the game. So you are correct in that we're like a quarter through. It seems so short. I was just thinking of that. I'm like, all-star voting already? It's like you really have like a solid month, if that, and barely that, because I remember there was one team, I think they played on a Friday and then their next game wasn't until the following Friday. So you got like a little time to get in and make people fall in love with you, and we're already talking about all-star, and then we're gonna blink and it's gonna be the postseason and then it's gonna be over. But I like a lot of what I'm seeing. I like a lot of the business side of things, like the Ion TV deal, the new partners. I think they announced a tire partner earlier today. So I'm liking a lot of that. I'm liking a lot of what I'm seeing from certain players like Shakira Austin, loving to see Kalani Brown back in Dallas doing her thing. Yes. But I'm not really a fan of some other things that I'm seeing though. Like the Las Vegas situation, the way that was handled, the way that it was spoken about in the media with the De'Arica Hamby and Coach Hammond situation. I didn't feel like it was taken seriously. I don't really appreciate this idea that they're being being villainized or whatever that narrative some people have out there. I don't like that. But for the most part, I do like the chaos outside of obviously Connecticut and Vegas at 1 and 2. I like that a lot of people had their ideas of who was going to be like 3 through 12, and I haven't seen anyone get them all right. So I appreciate that the league is starting to balance out, even though there's like a significant drop, I feel like, after maybe the top 7, like Indiana, Phoenix, Seattle, all of that. But I appreciate that even those lower ranked teams who maybe only have a win or two can still, on any given night, put up a huge fight against the 1 and 2 ranked teams and get them up. So
because they've been fighting some of those games. They don't have the record doesn't show it, but they fight in these games. Like they push the teams to the limit. They're battling. And Aaliyah Boston, to me, is not playing like a rookie. Like she'll get in there with you and tussle with you to get that rebound. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from her, especially. But I'm liking what the young pieces on the Indiana, and I'm curious to see how they're going to develop. Like looking at them next year. I'm curious about what the draft lottery is going to look like and who is going to land. The part of me is like, it should not be Indiana. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is the process over again. Like seriously. Connecticut is playing well. I am not the biggest Connecticut fan, but I understand that they are playing better than we are. We just happen to have Stewie on our team that can save us in clutch moments. But I feel like Connecticut is a better team I'm surprised at the Mystics. I just knew with EDD back that the Mystics, I thought they would be two. I thought I thought Vegas would be one. I thought because of our chemistry issues, we'll be three. And I thought that the Mystics would be two. You couldn't tell me that wasn't going to be the order, and I was wrong, obviously. Um, I like the Ion deal, and I like the way teams are showing the W, where you can find where the W is broadcast. Like teams have their own format, but teams have been very straightforward with showing, okay, this is where you can watch, this is where you can watch. And I like that. I like the fact that players have the Players Association have that arrangement where they have that deal where you have the W players can get at least not sit in the regular with the regular folk. They can get some privacy a little bit to the side of some of the clubs because they are more visual now, and they're more popular. And I just at least they're going to be in public. At least get them a little privacy. I do like that they have access to if they have back to backs, they have access to charter flights. Don't like what happened to Brittany Griner, at the airport recently. I feel like it's mixed signals. Should they have been on the private or not? Like, I feel like the messages were mixed. I was curious to how you felt about the Griner situation.
Yeah. So I saw that there were different statements being put out, and it was kind of like the blame game. I know that the Players Association, well, a lot of the players spoke out first, and then the Players Association, and it sounded like between the league statement and the Phoenix Mercury statement that the league approved charter flights prior to the season, and it kind of sounded like they were saying it was up to the Mercury to, I guess, take advantage. I do know that the last thing that I saw was that her agent said something. I did not look at what the agent said, but I remember before that it was my understanding that BG was allowed to fly solo for charters, but that she would not do it without the rest of her team.
And I felt like I saw a video on somebody's Instagram where they were on the charter, like the team was on the charter, and earlier in the season. And I was like, okay, they're flying charter. But I guess it's not for every flight, because then you see them in the public airport in that situation. So I was a little confused at first. I was like, okay, it's probably not for every flight. That's probably the issue.
But I don't know if that was a back-to-back or not, and I don't really know. And so I do understand that the league has obviously stepped in to keep it as fair as possible and saying that you can't fly charter because it gives you an unfair advantage over this team who is not going to fly charter or what have you, and that from like a fairness but security standpoint, obviously you do make an exception for BG, but I understand where BG is coming from of not wanting to do that solo. I mean, I'm sure everybody will understand, but anytime like a player is singled out, you risk like alienating yourself, your teammates kind of maybe get some hostility or jealousy. Like, I get all of that, but I do need them to be on the same page though, of like, well, if it's just not possible for all of you to fly charter all the time, then you kind of have to meet Brittany somewhere in the middle, and everybody is just gonna have to put their feelings to the side about something if it's truly about safety and what's in the best interest for BG. So hopefully they figure that out. They had that conversation. Now, I personally believe that teams should they should figure out a way to tax teams like how the NBA has a luxury tax. I think you should just make a luxury tax, and then everybody who goes over, so it will probably be New York, Atlanta, Vegas. I know Chicago just introduced some new investors. Not sure if they would be, willing to meet Vegas and New York and Atlanta where they're at as far as the money goes. But if they do, then tax them, put the tax in a team fund for the teams that don't have it or don't want to pay for the charter, give it to them so that everybody can fly a charter, and we can kind of like stop having this conversation. Like, if there are people who have the money and the means and they want to, then just let them tax them some more and give it to everybody else to make it an even playing field. Like, I don't understand why we are still honestly having this conversation when it comes to charters.
And that's another conversation. Like, when I look at like the WNBA and their like CBA, I'm like, that's one thing I do wish the W had. That I wish they had a luxury tax bracket, because that, like, that can help some of these teams that don't have the wealth capacity, seemingly, that the NBA or NFL-led team owners seem to have, like with Mark Davis and the size, and now Matt Ishiba. Because like you had the Philadelphia, one of the owners of the Sixers, come out and say, like, he's not going to pay for another team to play in the arena they're playing in. He thinks the WNBA is going towards not having NBA team owners be team owners in the W going forward. And even though Matt Ishiba, they have another NBA team owner, but that he thinks is going to be Toronto and Oakland. And I was like, interesting, because the team, you have Mark Davis, who just built the Aces, that magnificent training facility, and I was like, well, that is another advantage for the Aces. Like, they don't want, some of these teams getting these charters when everybody can't afford it. But you have the Aces out here with this training facility, brand spanking new. Seattle's building one, I know, but that's, like, and a lot of people were like, how is this not an advantage? This is another sexy selling point that that's going to be everybody's top choice. And then, maybe New York, because they have some really good facilities and they're paying. And I mean, I just don't understand, like, the when it comes to the CBA, why that's okay, building the facility, but the charters is something that is a sticking point.
Well, first of all, I remember having that conversation with Larry, the majority owner of Atlanta, when something came out about the charters, or when I mentioned or suggested that they do the luxury tax, for the salary cap and then use that to fund the charters. He said something similar, something that was pushing back. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but my response to him was, there's only so much you can do to stop teams from becoming competitive, like building facilities. Like, you can stop a charter, but you can't stop what access the teams are able to give players when you have someone like Candace Parker coming out and saying, I've never had a locker. Right?
That was shocking. That was shocking to so many people, actually.
It's really only so much you can do. I mean, we're coming from college, essentially, from the NCAA to the WNBA, where players are literally making their decisions based on fit for the team, the facilities, the program, all of these things that they're able to take into consideration. All of these college programs using donors or whatever to look at our film room with the movie theater seats and all of this, and then you expect them to what? Everybody's not going to be on the same level. As long as I feel like the CBA should be worried about what is the mandatory minimum instead of worrying about the maximum. Don't worry about what the next team owner is doing, because at the end of the day, you can't control what an owner does with their pockets. Sorry, not sorry. They do own the team. So as long as you are making, like I said, mandatory minimums for what has to be met by every team, too bad, so sad. Tell them if they want the competitive advantage, tell them step their cookies up, do what Atlanta did and try and force a sale of ownership, figure it out. But I need them to figure out what page they want to get on. And it does start with the CBA. I need them to read their CBA. I need them to understand their CBA. I need them to be on one page, because like I said, I'm not sure what happened in the Brittany Griner situation, but my personal opinion, it's a bad look when Breonna Stewart and whoever else is saying this is unacceptable and adding the WNBA when they don't even know any facts. And then the WNBA comes back and says, well, actually, we did approve this, but it is not up to us to implement it because the WNBA would not otherwise handle travel. No. So you're looking at Phoenix, but you're adding the W. And so that looks bad. And that's when you get all this other hoop line drama around college players making snide comments about the W and how, like, they're like, well, why do y'all want to go from there? Well, y'all give them the ammo when y'all do stuff like that. Y'all are the ones who negotiate the CBA. The same Breonna Stewart talking about prioritization like she's not on like one of the committees for the CBA. Like you know, you are part of leadership in the Players Association. Y'all sat up there and y'all demanded raises, and y'all did a great job, and y'all demanded, you know, things like not having to share hotel rooms, because I think you had to be like 5 years in or something, like 2 to 5 years in, and that's when you got like your own hotel room, right? They made sure that players with children got at least a 2-bedroom apartment as like mandatory minimums. Y'all did all of this with protection for pregnancies and all of this, but is it, and respectfully, whose fault is it that you got raises but you did not also raise the salary cap? What do you want us to do? Because we are not at the table with you all for these CBAs, because that's not our business. We are fans. We are not your arbitrators. We are not your negotiators. That is what you have Miss Jackson for and the rest of the staff at the Players Association. Y'all need to consult the attorneys that I know y'all don't have. Y'all need to consult the agents that y'all have but clearly don't talk to. Like, y'all need to have conversations with the people who are supposed to be in the room and stop taking everything to Twitter.
I agree with everything you just said, 100%. That I just feel like every year we talk about CBA and you know, to no avail, you know what I mean? So I mean, we'll see. Like soon we're going to have, I guess in a few years, you'll have 2 new teams entering the W with expansion. And it looks like it's going to be Toronto. That's the worst kept secret. Toronto.
I don't think it's going to be Toronto. I genuinely don't think it's going to be Toronto. Yes, because the only reason that they played in Toronto recently, I won't say the only reason, but I'm in Chicago and I've driven to Toronto before. It's an 8-hour trip. That's probably why. I mean, granted, New York was right there, but Minnesota and Chicago are drivable distances. Like, there's a reason why LA, Seattle, Phoenix were not at that game, because if you're having trouble with direct flights, because you know, different teams use different airlines if they're like have an official partner, and like every airline doesn't go everywhere. So it's a lot trying to, in my opinion, facilitate travel with an international team when they have as many issues as they do now in America.
Yep. I said that last year, and people were like, well, Toronto, they'll have the audience in Toronto. There'll be more people there that are usually at Sparks games, because there's this thought that people don't really go to the support the Sparks like they should.
They don't.
In Toronto, they'll come out and support the team. I was like, what about the travel headache that I keep hearing about with Toronto? And then that was pushed to the side. So you think the travel could be an issue? What about Oakland? I mean,
I do think the travel is an issue. I mean, I did see the turnout in the Toronto game, and that is amazing. And I would love to see if it's sustainable. I think it probably would be. I mean, that's very different when we're talking about countries, though, and how we have 12 teams for one.
Yeah.
They would have one for an entire country. So I would hope that y'all could take turns to fill the arena. But personally, I don't feel like.
So, and I mean, this sustainable isn't for a whole season.
Well, I mean, I think it could be. Again, the travel issue would probably just be the biggest thing, and I'm not too familiar with the laws over there and just how all of that works. But I'm not opposed to it. I just would like them to figure out stuff before they try and go big. But I think and it has nothing to do with the business decision. I just don't think Oakland deserves one because of the way, and I understand, because I know we've had this conversation in the group chat with Robin. Like, I understand California is big and it's not just so easy necessarily to say, okay, well, if you can go to a game in Oakland, you can go to a game in Los Angeles. Like, I know that that's not the case. And I know that we once lived in a time where the Sacramento Monarchs existed and the LA Sparks existed. I understand that. But when you do have other places, where people are showing up to Atlanta from South Carolina, if they can do that, I feel like you can make the drive if you really want to from Oakland to LA. I think Atlanta being really one of the only, I mean, I know people call Texas the South, but I think they need some more love over there, in my opinion. I think we should try and spread it out. We had this conversation on a space the other day, and you definitely have to be careful with the states that you pick.
I keep hearing Nashville. That's why I brought up.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we see what's happening in, as much people want Miami Soul back, right? What's going on in Florida, you're not getting that.
No,
I don't really think that most players would want to be in Tennessee. So I'm genuinely not sure what the answer is, because that's what the South looks like. I mean, they're very red, so I'm not sure. But I just feel like with California, show us, y'all aren't on an internship right now. Show us you deserve it by supporting your Sparks. And then we can maybe have a conversation about Oakland. That's how I
Sparks. When I look at the Sparks, and I want to have a conversation with Robin on the Sparks, because ownership, I don't feel like ownership does enough to market that team the way that they should be, the way they could be marketed. I love how Atlanta markets their team. I love how even across socials, I like how Indiana was really doing more to promote their team and really promote the newcomers. And you see so many W teams doing more in terms of marketing their players. I feel like with the Sparks, I just don't see them doing it, considering Magic is one of the owners, Magic and Cookie, and why don't you do something, tap into some of your veterans more than Lisa Leslie, because Lisa Leslie doesn't always say that. Some of the things she says doesn't really align with the W community. I feel like they're not aligned with the W community like they should be. So I feel like with the Sparks, it's kind of the ownership has to take it. And Magic is one of my favorite players ever. But when it comes to I have been underwhelmed with how the ownership of the Sparks has been handled. I love NECA. Janae, also love Janae and media, but I feel like with the Sparks, it's some of it could be self-inflicted. Does that make sense?
Yes. And from what I observed, with that team, I remember the photographer was also like the social person. And there was a PR person who's no longer there, so I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure they've replaced that person, but there was just, in my opinion, a lot from the front office standpoint when it comes to marketing, communications, PR that didn't make sense. I think a lot of teams act like they don't know what the relations stands for. Like, I think every team should have community relations, player relations, and public relations. And they need to understand that to have the good relations, you need to have and build good, strong, mutually beneficial relationships. I think that front office needs to improve tremendously on building mutually beneficial relationships. I think that's a start. So yeah, when you have one person doing everything, of course they're going to be stretched thin to pour into what maybe other departments can do with marketing depending on their staff. I think it takes creativeness from partners, the sponsorship team. Like, I think people don't realize that marketing is truly a team effort, even outside of just the marketing department. And so I think it starts there with like a bridge between ticket sales and partnerships and marketing. And it can't just be left up to whoever's in charge of PR or social. But you are correct in that I think they could do a whole lot more, especially when you have Leslie Jones there as a season ticket holder. You have someone like Vivica A. Fox, who, you know, is a sponsor with her bundles, and I know she's been there a lot. Like, LA is there's no reason why LA should not be doing LA things. Like, I understand the team isn't necessarily the best, but
they're better though. I feel like they're better than I thought that they were going to be. I mean, they're flowing better than they definitely were last year. Like when Nika said at the beginning of the season that they feel like a professional team for the first time in a while. I see what she means, but are they where they would like to be? No, but they're doing better than I personally thought they would. And Brandon has joined us, so Brandon is here. Brandon, feel free to jump in. We were just talking about some of the WNBA teams.
Hello.
We were talking about expansion. Subria shared that she doesn't think Toronto is possible because of the travel. So we were talking about some of that, and then we talked about the Sparks because Oakland is considered to be a possible location on rumor, but they don't, California is not exactly a big supporter of the Sparks. So it's like, okay, put another team in California. So that's where we are. We jumped around talking about the season. Yeah,
I could see Sacramento before I saw the Bay Area, from a cost perspective, and they're still struggling to solve what their arena and complexes look like in East Oakland, which is the reason I think the A's just announced they're leaving. So that place is
the W would be the only sports team really in Oakland. That'd be the last. Yeah, that'd be the only one.
I agree. How are you doing, Subria?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
What markets do you think are going to be what if you were to pick two markets for expansion? What two markets would they be? And both of you guys answer this question. Brandon, you go first, and then Subria, you jump in with the markets that you would go with.
I still think maybe like I do believe California would probably do something up north because that state's so big, which is why I think Sacramento.
Huge.
I also think it's something like maybe because there's Seattle, but maybe Portland, just the support that they have up there. You got Chicago.
You already gave us two. You said California and.
I was saying if there's another. Yeah, that's what I. Yeah.
It's because for me, it'd be Portland and Charlotte because I want this thing to come back. But Subria, I'm curious of what's in that head of yours.
Okay, so first, I just want to say that I would support what we talked about before as far as revisiting the CBA to make the salary cap more reflective of the raises that have been previously implemented and adding roster spots before I did the expansion, because I truly feel like the league does not learn. I won't even just say the league. I will say women's basketball, because when you look at old documentaries of like the tour that they took Team USA on when they first built the women's team, and having simple things like having merch available and them signing autographs is something that teams have gone away from. So I need us to right now go back, do our research, see what worked, see what didn't work, like have conversations with each other to figure out how do we get the 12 teams right that we have before we start adding to the chaos. I would like us to do that. Because I kind of talked about it earlier with the red states and just how tricky that is. I can see, Sacramento. I am a proponent of reactivating one of our fallen teams as part of this upcoming wave of expansion. So I'm not mad at Charlotte. I know Dawn and company would love a team in Philly. If our government wasn't what it was, I know for a fact a team in Tennessee would do amazing things. Because the one thing about those Lady Vols, I want to go to the South. I really do. Like, I wouldn't even be too mad at a team in NOLA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
But, just things that need to be figured out first. So I still maintain what I said about California not deserving, but I also would say try to look at the women's soccer teams and where they are and try and build off of, look at their attendance and see what they are able to pull, as well as women's basketball, in college numbers, and see what works. So you don't have to kind of just close your eyes and throw a dart, and wherever it lands, that's where you are committed to. I say look at what works. But I also say that though, Malika, because we talked about how the Sparks fans don't support them, but look up Angel City Football Club. A lot of, National Soccer League people talk about how, they have the San Diego Wave, and they have Angel City in LA. So they do have the two things, and it's a cute little rivalry. It's real cute. And people talk about how San Diego built the team first and Angel City built the brand first. Someone just tweeted that recently, and I thought that was really interesting. But I don't know if I can be too mad at it, because the Angel City games look fun. I don't care to look at their record when I'm thinking, oh, I want to go to an Angel City game. So it's you have give and take. I think you're going to have those teams who are team focused, but if it's boring, it's boring. And then you have teams who have great atmosphere, great product experiences, and their team might not be the best. But I think the Sparks could learn a few things from Angel City, honestly.
Okay. I like your idea. I like that focus on changing the salary cap model and filling in more roster seats. But I don't look at that as an either or to expansion. That's something I believe they should be doing today. And I don't believe, I think it's a bullshit excuse that there's no money in WNBA ownership to be able to do that. Joe Tsai is one of the richest men in the world. Matt Ishbia $7.8 billion net worth.
NBA owners. They're NBA owners and they're trying to move away from NBA ownership moving forward.
But ownership is ownership is ownership. Like, billionaires are going to come buy this stuff up, and they do have the loot. They do have the capability to do that.
Sure. But I think we have gotten to a point in at least the W community or fandom where, well, I won't say we, I'll say I'm not accepting the bare minimum or the sake of doing something just to say you're doing it. Now, I'm not saying that expansion shouldn't be the goal or that we can't do both. I believe that you can certainly do it. What I'm saying though is when you have all the travel issues that you're having when you released a new app and for the first however many weeks people couldn't split screen, when ESPN is doing you so bogus, but that's for whatever reason the main TV partner you just insist on doing stuff with and letting them treat you like crap. When Nike don't care about you or your jerseys, you got all of this stuff.
Yep, that's
like
right.
Your mama say you need to clean your room before you start trying to do stuff like other stuff in the house. Like, that's just how I feel, because when you have so many players in the age of social media that are vocal, that are gonna run and tell social media, it does not make you look good when they do that and they have valid concerns, and it's concerns where you're like, dang, y'all, like, why is that even a thing? Like, we see how with NIL and just I guess college players are no longer looking at the W as some new shiny thing that they can only get.
Yeah, Andrew Reese was very clear about that.
No, that's fair. We're on the same page. My answer, I think I'm answered two different questions. One is about expansion, and I was just saying, from an expansion perspective, what other cities can you go to? Cleaning your house is absolutely necessary. And I believe a lot of that is self-imposed based on, when I say self-imposed, the ownership community, the bylaws that they've created, they've put themselves in that position. You've chosen not to have the appropriate travel accommodations for your players. It's not that you don't have enough money. It is not that.
Sure.
It is not that we do not have the funds and the resources to be able to do this, because you absolutely do. The safety of your players in airports getting harassed by average Joes, like high school players have more protection than that. Like, they have more protection. It's crazy. People just jump on you and they're hiding in the corner. Not hiding, but they're like, yo, we've got to huddle up and be in a safe space inside of an airport. Like,
but that comes from having owners that care enough about that, though.
That's correct.
Like, there are some business people who are just like, I got the money and so I'm here. And they haven't really been held accountable, held to a standard, really, and things have just kind of become the norm because, like, it is what it is, or it is the way it is because it is the way that it has been. And so I think we're starting to see a shift between, like, fans and players. We're like, look, we're not doing that anymore, because also the problem with some type of owners, and it's not to say that I don't think that, if you're an NBA owner, you should automatically be prevented from getting a W team. We need owners who are going to understand that what works over there ain't going to work over here. And you can't be so hard-headed and stubborn thinking that it's the same. If you are insisting on running your organization, your WNBA organization, the way you run your NBA organization, then I don't need you over here, because it's not going to work. And I'm in Chicago, so my team was fortunate enough to just win our first championship. But the Sky, I mean, we just added new owners, and there are thoughts about, D Wade was at practice today and potentially is thinking about becoming an owner, but they're cheap. Like, when we won, they didn't even have confetti. No, they had it when we won the championship, but I know we had just gotten rid of the Eastern and Western Conference, but there was no confetti to even say like we're going to the championship. Like, and I think someone's like, well, what could be, there are no, conference finals. No, but like you are going to the championship game though. Like you can brand around that. Like that's an exciting thing. But like we felt like people joke about Miami. We felt like Miami in there wasn't no free. We didn't get no free t-shirts. They didn't want to do confetti, so people didn't get we didn't get no t-shirt. I think we might have gotten a rally towel, maybe. But when you have owners like that, keep them. I don't want them.
I agree with you. So do you see, I don't get the sense that there's any WNBA, on the WNBA side of ownership, that they're trying to run those organizations like NBA teams, when I would like to see them do it more. Like put the effort that you put in behind NBA teams, the operation.
Put the effort in, but the actual look of it is not going to be the same. But I do like how the sides separate. Clara does the W team while Joe's side does the NBA. So they separate it, and like it's not the same approach. You don't have the same leader running those teams. Mark Davis treats the Las Vegas Aces as professional athletes. Like he would treat his professional athletes.
That's correct.
They get that care.
But there are some. Okay, so
I don't know of a scenario. I guess I didn't recognize the scenario.
I'll give you one. There are some teams like the ownership. I want to say when you do look up for a job, when you look up jobs in Brooklyn, all of the Nets, Liberty, and whoever else is under that group, they're all on the same
PSC
website.
Yeah.
And I know Washington is like Monumental Sports.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think Minnesota might be connected.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I know at one point Indiana's store was connected, the Fever and the Pacers, but I'm not sure if they had the same employees. So even for me, I think that any job where you are the director of something for both the NBA team and the W team is a red flag for me. And the reason why
absolutely.
I say that,
that's a good point.
Too many of them do that. And
Absolutely.
That's why I'm like, I don't want you here, because at the end of the day, and this is coming from someone, I used to work at the Atlanta Hawks, and I remember when the Dream were back in, did they change the name of the arena? It was Phillips Arena when I was there. When the Dream were there, different ownership group, but they were in the same building on the second floor, and we were all the way at the top. Right. So I actually made connections with the Dream, and I just remembered that people would try to intern or work for the Dream with the intention of trying to work for the Hawks. You got to go, because I remember it's not a stepping stone. And when you pick people who are treating it like a stepping stone, even when we do our commissioner, and this is like no shade to Kathy, but like, I don't care about you being some good CEO of some consulting firm, Goldman and Sachs. She was at
Deloitte or something. Deloitte, right?
Yeah. I don't care about any of that. Like, I need us to stop picking leadership based on stuff like that and pick the people who have been here, who know what they're doing here. Because what you did over there is not gonna work over here. And if you've never been over here, then you can't say that. Now, it's one thing if you've maybe done both. Like if Kathy had been like, man, I was actually interning for the Dallas Wings, and then I was the head of ticket sales over there, and then I went to over there, and then I came back. But a lot of them don't even do that. And it's like they give people too much control when their intentions are not pure, and we can see it and we can tell, and I'm sick of it, because there's no reason why I should be talking to a Chicago Sky rep and I mentioned something about Cappy Pondexter and they go who, and they like say her name wrong, and this is like maybe a season or two after she was here.